babies. Another one died at age 6 years old, and then the rest lived on into their adulthood, had kids and those kind of things. So we had a lot of family, and they all lived in the area. And see, I'm on the lower end as far as age-wise. I'm one of the younger cousins. Uncle Bill had a great relationship with the family throughout his entire life. At that time, before I was born, all my older cousins remember things like parties at a local lake called Kensington, where Uncle Bill would, there'd be a family gathering at somebody's house, and he'd say, "Who wants to go to the beach?" And all the nephews and nieces would run and fight for who's going to sit with Uncle Bill in his convertible, because he was the only one who had a convertible. And he used to take the kids on dates with him. And my dad would do the same thing. They'd go on a date with him, and here he's bringing nephews and nieces along. You can imagine how uncomfortable that might have been. But anyway, he was just a great guy, and the family always loved kids. I've noticed that ever since I was growing up, where my aunt would take my face and say, "Aren't you just gorgeous?" in her Boston accent. And things like my dad brings a big bag of Jelly Bellies or what it's called, gummy bears, and gives them to he doesn't get the older kids, he gets the youngest kid. He says, "You're in charge of these, and I want you to take care of who gets them." Just making the young ones feel important. It's just always been part of our family. So, it's another reason he's so loved. And we talked about, well, he had actually, just for numbers, 19 nieces and nephews. So the one thing he didn't have, obviously, that he probably missed out on was a family of his own. He married twice. Unfortunately for the ladies, it didn't work out in either case. One of those two had a son that Uncle Bill adopted at a young age, and then Uncle Bill, tragically lost him. He loved that boy like his own, and the boy had muscular dystrophy, so he passed away at something like age 15. So it was kind of a sad thing to see a man so in love with children have to lose his very own. As far as his stone carver, I don't know if you know this, he was a fourth generation, as far as I could go back in the records of Italy. His great-grandfather, when I went to Italy, he has, the town was Berea, it's in the mountains of Abruzzi, and it was one of those walled cities during the time of the medieval times, when Rome had to flee to the cities and built their own little walled cities away from the barbarians. And this home, I actually got to go in. Above the doorway in the arch, it's like the center stone of the arch, is a carving, a stone carving, dated 1870, and it has the initials PS for Pasquale Scarnickia. And it had a branch on it, and on the branch were 11 leaves, one for each of his children. So this great grandfather of Tuna's was actually had a big family as well. From there, it was Patrizio, who was his grandfather, was a stone carver in Italy, like I mentioned about the fountain. He also carved a lot of things in the Boston area. And then that's where my uncle got started. Actually, I'm sorry, then you go to my grandfather, and my grandfather became a stone carver and did a lot of work in the Boston area and in the Detroit area. And then Uncle Bill did a little work in Detroit, and then he moved here and did work on the Tribune Tower. I think one of the favorite stories I've heard about, and I'm sure there's many more, and in fact, if you know of some carvings that you can share with me that you know about, I'd love to hear them, because I'd like to go photograph them and things. But he used to talk about the Virgin Mary he was asked to carve for a local church. And apparently, during the middle of carving this, he had to leave. He was going on vacation, or he had to go back and do something at home or something. So he took a few days off. Well, in the meantime, the priest came and approached the company that he was working for and said, "Look, we've got to finish this statue." So while he was gone, they got another kid involved, or another guy involved, to finish it for him. Well, when Uncle Bill came back, the priest, or his boss came up to him and said, "Look, you've got to run over to that parish. The priest is really angry with us right now. You've got to go fix what happened." So he didn't know what to expect. He walks in, and there's a statue that's covered with some kind of a tarp. And the priest said, "You got to come and see this." And he took the tarp off, and Uncle Bill said, "There's the Virgin Mary," and she had kind of a smirk on her face, and she almost looked like a hooker. So he had to quickly put the touches on that to clean that up. But that was a kind of a fun story I used to like to hear him talk about. his love of music, I think our whole family is a love of music. Everybody loves music. But in his case, it came from his mother's side, actually. So I talked about my grandfather. My grandmother was born in Italy. Her father was a maestro of music in Naples. He was a professor of music, actually. And he came to Boston, and he started a band called the Roma Band. And that band continues to play today at the Italian festivals. They lead the parades and those kind of things. So it's a legacy. He started around 1914, and it's still alive today. He was into music. His sons were into music. These would be my uncle's uncles. One was a concert pianist. My grandmother had an opera singer in Italy that was a cousin. So, you know, the music portion, I think, if it's in your genes, it came from that side. His involvement in the American Legion, you've talked about things like he's been post commanders, district commanders. I didn't even know what that stuff meant until I've talked to some of you. I appreciate your educating me on that. He also ran the oratorical contests we talked about, Veterans Day speeches and eulogies. He'd get up and be the one to read for others. He'd get up in front of a bunch of people, the way I understand it, at the cemeteries and give eulogies and speeches. And we've seen him on TV. There's a local station in Evanston where we got a copy of the tape where Uncle Bill was actually being interviewed by about his involvement in the war and things like that. I remember him as the piano maestro at the Christmas parties and making Tom and Jerry's. That was always a favorite of my cousin Randy's. And actually Gina liked those as well. I kind of liked them. I remember how he ran the show. I've been to a couple of the picnics, and how he really ran the show, again, with the kids. He'd have this megaphone and organizing tug-of-wars and things like that, and I was real proud of that. And then finally, I understand he was the chief pancake flipper at the annual pancake breakfast that he just missed. Part of me thinks, you know, he didn't want to be it anymore, so he kind of cut things off early. I don't know. Anyway, and then I guess finally, a couple of mentions about his active life. American Legion, ranger at a golf course. He just played golf like just over a month ago. He said, I think it was September 28th. I don't know if anybody here played with him, but just amazing. And I'm sad, and I've had tears, but I've never cried about Uncle Bill's death, because, I mean, we all wish we could live that long, that healthy. A month ago playing golf, and then here he is. It's just, he you know, you've heard of fallen heroes, you know, look at Brett Favre, right? Who knows what's going to happen to him? He might go down and be a miserable failure. Uncle Bill died a hero, and he died as gracefully as he lived. His death was peaceful and quiet, and he just slept. And that, I take comfort in that, I really do. So, I guess, let's see, I wanted to say something about one thing he used to tell me, that's right. He used to tell me all the time, we talk about, I get old pictures out, we talk about his father, because he really respected, and that was a hero of Uncle Bill's. And he said, you know, Jimmy, if you knew my father, because I was only 6 years old when my grandfather died, but he goes, if you knew my father, you'd have lived a different life. And then I'm like, and I always kind of wish, darn it, I wish I knew Grandpa, you know? And then all of a sudden I think about it, and it's like, no, I knew Uncle Bill. I lived a different life because of that. So, anyway, I had to think about that, and it really touched me when I thought about it. Let's see, he was a role model hero. He was a hero to his own brothers and sisters. My dad would be the first to say that. Anyway, I guess one last thing. My mom used to always say, she lost a lot of family at a young age, and then even my dad lost his sister in her 50s, and that was too young. It was my mom's, one of her favorite in-laws, and she used to say that God always takes the young ones, you know. I think he misplaced Uncle Bill, because he let him live a long time, and he's one of the best. So I'm going to really miss him. So anybody else that wants to say anything?
I'll say a couple.
Okay.
I wanted to say a few things about his young life. We grew up during the Depression, and in the 30s, the mid-30s, my brother Bill was 16 years old, and he quit high school in order to join the CCC camp, that's a civilian conservation camp, to help support the family. My older brother joined as well, but before him, but this is about my brother Bill. Well, while he was in the CC camp, I don't know what kind of work he did or whatever. It had a lot to do with forestry and lumberjack type work and whatnot. And when he got discharged from the CCC camp, when he came home, he was a complete transformation. He bulked up, and he had muscles in his arms and legs and his upper torso that, you know, people go to gyms and whatnot to tame this kind of bodybuilding. They never had gyms in those days, you know, that you could go to the mall and work out with weights and whatnot. But he never did any of that I knew of. And he, my friends, they would see him, boy, look at the muscles on your brother. And I would be beaming, you know. Probably, he's 8 years older than I am. And he was well known throughout the neighborhood as being envied by men, kids, and whatnot. Now, I don't know what happened to his muscles, but he was really a specimen, and I was real proud of him. But after that, when we moved to Michigan, I became his errand boy. He worked as an apprentice stonecutter. And, you know, he was only 19 years old at the time. And I would, if he wanted something at the store, I would go. I'd have to go. He used to attend these dance halls on Fridays or Saturdays, the ballrooms, where they had the big bands and everything. And that was his recreation along with his friends. And on Monday, I would have to take his white shirts after he built up a few over the weekends to the Chinese laundry. And then on Fridays, I would have to go to the drugstore, get him a small tube of Ipana toothpaste, and maybe some hair tonic or something. And my reward for all of that was he'd give me 2 bits. Well, that was quite a bit. It was, I could go to the show and get a couple candy bars or something. But that was some of his young life, always a big family. And anyway, I thought I'd clue you in on some of his younger life, but I'm not going to go too far with it. But I'd like to thank Father and the Legion for this wonderful tribute to my brother. And I thank you very much.
Anybody else care to say anything? Putting everybody on the spot here. Anybody from the family?
You did a great job.
Sorry, I
Took away all your opportunities to say anything. You said everything I did. Okay.